Good morning to all and welcome. I'm so happy that you are able to join us for this talk, this creative talk, the CIIF Creative Talk, the business of festivals in the Caribbean. Now, if you're like me, your bread and butter is tied into the cultural industries. And this morning, we're going to go through a number of best practices to help us all build a better creative industry for the region and for the world. We want to be able to tap into that global market and develop our countries. So we welcome all our viewers on Zoom and we welcome our viewers on YouTube. If you are joining us this morning, again, thank you. And please feel free to share the link with someone who you know would benefit from the discussion this morning. I'd like to start off by thanking our sponsors, of course, the Caribbean Development Bank, through the Cultural and Creative Industries Fund, otherwise known as CIIF, the National Cultural Foundation of Barbados, and of course, event executors Headline Entertainment, who made all of this possible with their partners as well. And we are going to keep it short, ladies and gentlemen. We have but 1 hour to get through some things, so I'm going to be moving very quickly. Please allow me to remind you that the meeting is recorded. And if you have any questions, I'm Carlette Bellion. Call me Carlette. I'm happy to have you here. We're going to start off with quick remarks from the CEO, the managing director rather, of Headline Entertainment, Jerome Hamilton, who brought this all together. Jerome?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It is our absolute pleasure to be able to have this discussion here today. It would obviously not be possible at all without first the Caribbean Development Bank through CIIF deciding and understanding the importance of discussions like this and facilitating this as among the many discussions that they've had across the sector, which is so important because especially our sector is not known for a lot of dialogue and communicating and connecting. And I thank them very much for doing this. It would also obviously not happen without National Cultural Foundation of Barbados, who has partnered with them to make this possible. And we're grateful for this opportunity. The time is short, so I'm hoping that what we do today, we learn a lot from each other, build partnership, and go forward to make the creative and cultural industry even greater in the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerome. Keeping it short and spicy so we can get to the meat of the matter. And the meat of the matter includes our sponsor. The Caribbean Development Bank has been instrumental in making these talks happen. And I would like to invite Ms. Lisa Harding, the coordinator of micro, small, and medium enterprise development at CBD, to make remarks. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And again, welcome to the 6th edition of the CIIF Creative Talk. CIIF Creative Talk is our regular series of conversations with practitioners, policymakers, and stakeholders in the creative industries sector. We really hope that this 2-day event will explore the future of festivals in the Caribbean, leaning on combined regional and diaspora experiences, and is part of the CDB's CIIF Festivals Protocols Research Consultancy being conducted by Headline Entertainment in partnership with the NCF of Barbados. Like many of you, we are cognizant that globally, festivals and carnivals provide significant benefits to the economic, cultural, and social aspect of our countries and communities. Most Caribbean countries host multiple festival events annually to celebrate aspects of their unique cultural heritage. Festivals and festival-type events were said to be among the most popular and fastest-growing segments for tourism in many of our island destinations. Unfortunately, we are also cognizant that COVID-19 has tested the resilience of this sector. And, really and truly, we really need to this has been evidenced by the multi-year cancellation of some of the region's most reputable festivals, such as Crop Over in Barbados, St. Lucia Carnival and Jazz, Creole Festival in Dominica, Mass and Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago, and Reggae Sunfest in Jamaica. It was certainly with a lot of pleasure when I saw the Carnival in St. Lucia quite recently. It was so energizing. It was so great to see people again playing mass, having a fun time, really celebrating their culture, the music, the dance, the performances, the costume making, and everything came together. And you can see that there was a lot of pent-up demand for this. However, this festival protocol consultancy was developed as a direct response to sector feedback from our 5th edition of CIIF Talk. And the CIIF team listened carefully and took action. And as a result, this toolkit is being developed with regional and international stakeholders to create a framework for income generation by festival and carnival producers in the face of crises such as COVID-19 and of course other natural disasters, as we are, remain some very vulnerable nations within the region. We believe that it's important for, this framework for income generation and to develop models for hybrid festivals of varying types and sizes, as I said, given the vulnerability of our region. As most of you would also be aware, we saw this also as a critical step in supporting the recovery and sustainability of the sector. And it's important to note that the finalized toolkit that will come out of this consultancy will be accessible for all creative industry stakeholders. As most of you would be aware, CIIF was established in 2018 by the CDB as a multi-donor fund to develop and encourage innovation, job creation, and improve enterprise sustainability by providing grant financing and technical assistance to creative and cultural entrepreneurs, small and medium enterprises, and business support organizations. CIIF's mandate to assist with the creation of an enabling environment has been guided by our operational pillars of innovation, collaboration, and sustainability. And we have been working with regional partners to deliver some very valuable interventions through TA and funding. Of course, this Festival Protocols project also intersects with ongoing projects that CIIF has also explored regarding the status of festivals and carnivals venues, for example, festival tourism and management, intellectual property and festivals, cross-sector festival collaborations, and hybrid and innovative festival formations. One of these projects has been a very exciting one called the Trifecta Carnival model being explored by Export St. Lucia and its partners Spice Mass Grenada and Mass Dominique. CIIF's large ecosystem of projects also includes ongoing data intelligence grants and accelerators, which are going to help to build new data collection models for festivals and carnivals and their related inputs. We thank you for joining us this morning and look forward to the fruitful discussions of the next 2 days towards the development of a comprehensive and sustainable toolkit for festivals and carnivals in the region. I thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Harding. We really appreciate that contextualizing so that we can move forward and be productive in this session this morning. All right, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists so that we can get right into the discussion. Please note that the full bios of the panelists have been included in the chat, and I know that the bios were communicated once you registered for the event. So we won't get into too much detail, but I do want to tell you about one of our first panelists, Ms. Tirona Heath. She is a Director of Market Engagement at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn USA, and she is passionate about connecting people with information needed to make intelligent decisions. We spoke about having access to data and how important it is to have data-driven decisions. So we're going to have that discussion. Then we also have on our panel Audu. Oh dear, and we went through this so many times. It's such a remarkable name. Audu.
Audu.
Thank you so much, Maikori. I made sure that I got the last name right and then from the first name. I apologize sincerely. However, he is the CEO of the Chocolate City Group USA and the co-founder of Pixel Ray Studios Ghana. We're going to hear more about Pixel Ray Studios in Ghana, but I need to mention that this speaker is passionate about being an advocate for social justice and entrepreneurship as a key economic empowerment indicator for young Africans. I was able to watch a number of your speeches on YouTube. Fascinating. And I know we're going to have a fantastic discussion. A number in Kingston, Jamaica. Kamal is the regional, has a fantastic one, and Kamal is passionate about events and has been for quite a long time. Also passionate about events, we have Lexy Brooks, who is the founder and CEO of VIP Connected Entertainment USA and the Caribbean. Lexy has too many years of experience for me to mention right now, because you look at her and say, no, she's too young to have that much experience. But I can say that she is well known for thinking strategically and overcoming obstacles to meet deadlines. And of course, we also have joining us in the panel, I see him there. He and I have muted backgrounds together. Jules Sabian, who is the Commander-in-Chief of Caesar's Army in Trinidad and Tobago. And Jules is passionate about building a global movement that amplifies Trinidad and Tobago's carnival culture. So we have a wonderful and distinguished panel. Good morning to all. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Amazing.
Happy to be here.
Indeed, and we're going to have a very powerful discussion. Let me start with the ladies over the gentlemen. Lexy, I know you were late to the party, so I'm going to put you on the spot first. And there are more than 20 million people who consider themselves creators on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and all the other social platforms. Some of them are earning six-figure incomes. How is translating that kind of access to the market? How is translating for the Caribbean creators in the festival and carnival economy? How do they do that effectively?
I can't say, for certain what each individual person's secret ingredient is. What I would start by saying is that we ought to, as a Caribbean community, diaspora, is to look and learn, right, and take advantage of what others are doing and how successful they are at what it is that they do as it pertains to capitalizing, right, on social media, being content creators, influencers, and so on and so forth. As it pertains specifically to festivals and carnivals, I believe that our Caribbean communities, diaspora members, could do more to assist, especially during carnival time, especially during Soca Monarch, upcoming artists who can benefit from creating a fan base, being content creators and things of that nature. I'm not sure as to the impact. I could not give a percentage as to what the impact is right now as it pertains to our Caribbean our islanders or Caribbean communities, but in terms of festivals and carnivals, in terms of marketing and media, we are in fact taking advantage of that. We do have more influencers, I would say, than we do, content creators who are benefiting in a huge financial way from this market.
And that's definitely something we need to address. And there are platforms that bring us attention and there are platforms that bring us money, and we have to have that balance to make it work. Thank you so very much. And I need to apologize to Mr. Colin Piper. I didn't see him when I was going through the many participants that we have this morning as one of our presenters. So please forgive me, Mr. Piper. Mr. Piper is the CEO of Discover Dominica Authority in Dominica, of course, working with the tourism industry there. And I think it's a great time then, Mr. Piper, for me to bring you in and ask about how it is that we can increase the attractiveness of our tourist destinations. Lexy mentioned the creative economy, and lots of influencers and lots of creators like to use our beautiful island as a backdrop. How can we increase the attractiveness? And good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure.
And I see we're in complementary colors too.
Well, it's the branded logo, Got to market everywhere you can. But certainly the advent of influencers, social media is a critical piece of how you market your destination, how you market your event. And so we try to take every and all opportunity to invite them in, and not only the influencers from abroad, although you are looking for their followers and to introduce your destination and event to their audience, but also to utilize the local influencers who can really give the event that authentic feel as well, and communicate the authenticness, so to speak, the uniqueness of each of our events to the populations that we want to and the segments that we want to introduce our events to. So definitely we use that from not only from an events perspective, festivals, carnival perspective, but on a wider scope to advertise and promote the destination.
Thank you so very much. That's important to note. And let me then pivot now to Tirona. In order to make this happen, certainly to get to our consumers, we have to have our business customers. So the B2B experience is important. I see you nodding your head. So tell us a little bit about that B2B journey and how it is that we can make the most of it for our benefit.
Yeah, thank you for having the business lens here, because I know attracting businesses is crucial in how we bring them to the conversation. I think it's a huge opportunity for B2B. I mean, we have a generation of workers growing up online that has corporate buying power, and they're digital savvy in ways that no other generation has been before. So that's really the opportunity. The challenge for us is that they're inundated with messages and ads competing for attention every single day. So the key for all of us in thinking about how we bring the opportunities of festivals is how do we cut through? It's the attention game, right? And so B2B is a little bit different than B2C in terms of the customer journey. A lot of the things that we think about, I think, really boil down to two things that marketers should focus on to really advance the conversation of B2B. So one of them is thinking about the customer journey in terms of this principle that I call the 95-5 rule. So I'll tell you about that. And then to remember that B2B marketers, it's not so much about the product, it's more so about the memory business. So when people talk about the buying journey, a lot of people think about the funnel. So it's the most recognized mental model in all of marketing. Instead, what we like to do is take the funnel and turn it on its side and think about movement over time. So you have buyers that are in market right now that are ready to work with you, ready to talk to you, but then you have buyers that are out market. These are future buyers that they may not yet know you, they may not be ready to talk to you. What we have to remember is that only 5% of buyers at any given moment want to talk to you now. The opportunity, the future cash flow actually lies with the 95% of marketers that you haven't yet connected, or customers rather, that you haven't yet connected with. So what does that mean? It means that B2B marketers need to focus more on brand building, because that's the memory device that when it's time for you to connect with that 95% of people, will have them think of your brand, your company, your services when they are ready to buy. So we overly focus right now on the 5% of people, and we don't do enough branding to reach the 95%. So brand building is where I want people to focus. The brand that's remembered is the brand that's bought. So we need to invest a lot more in brand campaigns for our services, more than we are right now, because we focus a lot on lead generation, not enough on brand building.
That's an excellent point. So I'm going to throw it to Kamal. As a marketer yourself, do you agree with everything that Ty had said? And how do you recommend that festival owners and carnival owners attract B2B customers like yourself?
No, I do agree. There's a lot that can be done across the Caribbean. I think the Caribbean in itself has quite a number of huge festivals, and Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Capova there. But what I do feel is that the Caribbean, we market ourselves as individual festival destination, but not as a unit. And I think the power is in the unit and how we can market as a unit. If we're able to tackle that and have the Caribbean be seen as a destination for entertainment and festivals, you can imagine how much you'll be able to maximize the amount of tourism arrivals and actually the amount of earning power. If you look at the three largest Caribbean countries across in terms of festival hosting, like Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, they gross over $300 million US a year when you take into account all the carnivals, Sumfest, Dream Weekend, etc. What if we're able to double the number of consumers that come out of Europe because most of, and Jules will tell you, most of the visitors that come to a lot of our festivals in the Caribbean, they come from the US market and maybe a little bit out of the UK market. But the European market, the Asian market is untapped. What if we can come together as a Caribbean to market the entire Caribbean and bring more consumers from across the world to increase the diversity of the product? Then we'll definitely be a force to reckon with across the world.
That's a significant statement, and I hope the media that are online took very note of that. Strength in numbers, and we can do so much when we have strength in numbers. Of course, in order to have that strength, lots of times we need financing. We need to find creative ways to have large-scale financing. So I'm going to turn to you, Audu. How do we attract? How do we scale up? How do we have creative projects for financing?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on, I mean, there's several, when we talk about the creative industry, there are several intersections. And I think that when we talk about festivals, I mean, you could be talking about a music festival, it could be the traditional carnival, and it could be even a video gaming festival as well. I think the key thing is around creating things that resonate with the crowd and what people want to pay for. When it comes to financing, I think that there's so many varied ways to fund that. Kamal, for example, works with a big corporate. They have the big money, right? They write those checks, but obviously they pay. I mean, they only put the money where there's going to be a return on the investment itself. So I think it behooves on those who are creating these destination marketing events to think about it from an ecosystem approach and not just one thing. So when you spend your dollars flying into St. Lucia or whatever it is, it needs to be a 360 experience. And so that's one way. The second thing is actually, in my experience, putting conferences together. What you basically do is break down the conference into little parts, and then you get funding for small parts of it. Because sometimes the big checks are hard for companies to write. But I think the third and critical thing is really around how what is the value add for those who are putting money into it? So whether it be an investor, whether it be a corporate, the question is, what is the return on the investment? Is it eyeballs, and what is that? Are those eyeballs going to equate to conversion as customers? That's quite critical. So I think it's really about looking at it holistically, not from your view, because we creatives always think about what is in it for us, and the question is always, what is it in? What is in for the sponsor? So I mean, I can go a bit deeper, but I'll stop here for now and then come back a bit deeper. Thanks.
Yes, and we will certainly come back to that point because it's a valid point as to how it is that we can get more involvement and not just look at it in what is in it for us, but our stakeholders as well. I'm going to pivot to Jules. Jules, what exciting innovations are you seeing which focus on creating multiple different experiences and offerings for festival and carnival attendees, allowing them to customize their own journey?
Good morning, everyone. I think a lot of my understanding or insight has come from the pandemic itself, and I would have seen a lot of digital transformation happening. So take example, even for myself as a company, we would have realized that events are no longer taking place, especially during the pandemic, and we would have had to transform our company into the digital world. So we would have embarked upon a VR platform, similarly to what we would have done physically, but in a virtual space. So it would have been a stage and persons as patrons, as avatars, etc., coming to enjoy an experience virtually. And it was a virtual island, so it was very simple from a Caribbean perspective, right? Those are the types of innovations I was seeing, even from a AR reality, augmented reality perspective. I've seen even Don Dada from Jamaica, who would have actually brought marketing campaigns to life, especially in light of events or festivals. He is using augmented reality to actually enhance marketing campaigns in such a way that is really phenomenal, right? I'm even seeing like barcodes that can be used on your earrings where patrons can take photos. It transforms individuals who are attending any sort of event, right? So it's phenomenal to see how the pandemic actually pushed persons to actually transform their business digitally. And I think what is phenomenal about it is just like what Kamal was speaking about. We have to expand our borders and our territories in terms of the reach. And I think that from a digital transformation perspective, the areas or the territories such as Asia, Africa, India, which are virtually untapped from a Caribbean perspective, can now be, we can now reach them in that regard based on digital transformation. There's also one thing that was kind of phenomenal for me during this pandemic. I felt that domestic tourism and our domestic offerings were enhanced. So take, for example, from a Trinidad and Tobagonian perspective, I learned during the pandemic how to like a moko jump. I learned how to stick fight, right? And me getting that understanding now has it in my head as we have more or less a little opened up. I am now going to try to create these offerings during our festival season. It's more exciting to also offer these different worlds that complement the typical fetes and the parade and the juves, etc. You can now fully embody or fully embrace one's territories and one's culture and the beautiful thing about our culture, right? And one last thing, even during the pandemic, I'm just saying based on a carnival aspect for Trinidad and Tobago, I have been heavily involved basically with the fetes and the carnival bands. Right? But during the pandemic, I explored the world of carnival theater. And based on that exploration, I will now include that in my 2023 offering. So ideally for me, it gives a little more variety, a little more diversity to what we offer as festivals and carnivals, given each and every one territory.
That was quite a bit to unpack, but I'm going to focus on how it is that we recover out of the pandemic and the new offerings that we have. And Colin, Dominica was one of the first countries to be out with events, with a festival, like Carnival after, well, we're still in the pandemic, but certainly the first to return. What were some of the challenges that you were able to overcome in terms of health protocols, in terms of attending confidence? Let us know what worked for you.
Thanks. Yeah, so we worked hand in hand with the health authorities to really get a sense for, what would work for the nation as a whole. We realized that there was a pent-up demand in terms of people wanting to do activities and exhale and celebrate. But we also realized that doing it, irresponsibly would and could, put us back in terms of higher number of positive testings and then eventually longer to open up. So we had we worked with the health team to really put together some protocols and did some pilot events during the carnival season. We held about 5 events, government assisted, private sector with certain aspects of it, because we realized that if we were successful with this, then we could open up more generally. So and this was not only for the benefit of the locals, but understanding the importance of the creative offerings, and entertainment offerings to the general tourism product. We realized that they're almost intricately connected, and we wanted to make sure that we could get back to the point where you could have the live music happening at properties and really provide some memorable experiences for your visitors coming in. So it was a carefully orchestrated approach to working with the health team, but also understanding the importance of the entertainment industry to the economy in general, and also from a social perspective and from a psychological perspective, really, giving the locals the opportunity to exhale and to really free up, as we say.
Yes, and enjoy. You made so many important points, and one of them, of course, we have to build memorable experiences and everything else that you said in terms of keeping it safe and such. So let me go to Lexy. Lexy, as someone who has been involved in a number of events, what do you see as the framework moving forward post-pandemic for successful festivals and carnivals in the Caribbean?
Post the pandemic, and let me say, I forgot to say at the top of the hour, good morning to everyone on the panel. Thank you to Headline for inviting me to be a part of this esteemed panel, and thank you to our moderator and to our host. Success post the pandemic for the festivals, there are a lot to be learned. I believe that the pandemic has opened all of our eyes to what we were doing prior, and kind of taught us how to adapt, especially in an uncertain world, which we find ourselves in, right? Because again, at any given point or at any given moment, we can still be hit with another crisis, not just in our own backyard, but as we experience with the pandemic around the world. In terms of the festivals and things that, and carnivals for that matter, that we can do moving forward and learning from this pandemic is how we go about, first and foremost, how do we go about with our professional relationships and how we treat and deal with others, right? As in terms of the artist side of things, no more should, we just, as artists, should we just feel like, okay, so, and I'm not saying this for every artist or all artists, that, the world owes us something, right? It shows that we're one melting, boiling pot. We ought to be considerate of promoters, for example, because what we learned during the pandemic, or prior to, I apologize, is that a lot of promoters had paid out a lot to artists, deposit and things of that nature. And I always say a promoter stand to lose before his or her event takes off or even happens, because a promoter normally pays out to security and venue and artist and so on and so forth. So as a promoter, you stand to lose before you even gain. Everyone else got paid before your event even takes place, right? A hurricane can happen, a rainfall, a washout can happen. So we should be more mindful and more considerate that it's a partnership relationship, hand in hand, artists and promoters alike for these events, not, festivals, concerts, carnivals and things of that nature. We should move forward thinking of it as a partnership, one hand washing the other, right? In terms of lessons learned, we're all grateful to be back in a place where, though we're mindful and we're optimistic and cautiously optimistic, entering back into a full-blown gathering event space, we ought to still be mindful that we do have the threat of, pandemics and spin-off to viruses and
Correct.
things of that nature. And at any point we can have, potential shutdown again. And how do we go about preparing for that in the future? And how do we go about persons who would normally go out and support these events, convincing them that we're in a safe space? What, procedures and methods and measures are we taking to say, yeah, it's okay to come back out to our festival. It's okay to come back out and support us. We're going to make you feel as safe as we possibly can. And here are the things that we're doing. And so just to conclude that, I would say, in terms of the festivals, just the fans are the ones that pay their tickets and come out and support, and to just assure them, once we can assure them, because fans even purchased tickets and lost on these events too prior to the pandemic and to the outbreak of the COVID, right? So, for the festivals, I would say target our fan base first, make our consumers and our audience feel comfortable. Returning to the dance floor, returning to the stadiums, returning to the places that we all gather to come out and have a great time.
Indeed, thank you so very much. And you set it up perfectly, because for Audu, I have this question. What are some of the things that we can do to have a smooth restart of the sector in the advent of any kind of crisis? Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic is just one and hopefully the last, but being realistic, it could be rain, it could be something else. How do we have a smooth restart to our sector?
Is that question for me again?
No, that's for Audu, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it was still. I think there are a couple of things that we really have to think about the creative industries from several aspects, right? I'll do an example. The project I'm working on is called Pixelway Studios, and the idea basically is to build 10 sound stages in Accra. And we're also looking at doing something similar in Barbados. I think one of the biggest things that we lose is being able to attract tourists, or at least open the doors for people to come into our territories. And I'm glad about the comment. I think I think it was Jules who made earlier about thinking about the region as one and not like different pockets of places. But the question is, why do people travel? They travel for value, they travel for an experience, and they travel to ensure that they get as much bang for the buck. But there are three players that need to work, I think, collaboratively. One, the government especially. What kind of incentives do you give for people coming into your city? The second thing is the investors, right? The investors and the big brands. And lastly, the entrepreneurs. And that's really critical. We're getting back into normalcy, but a lot has to change. So when you think about safety protocols, that's crucial. A good example is Tyler Perry Studios here in Atlanta. And what they did was, that was the only big scale studio that was operating during COVID. And the reason why was that the government here didn't shut down things. Atlanta probably was the only city that didn't shut down during the pandemic for some reason, and the numbers weren't ridiculous. But the other thing that they did was there was very intense testing on a daily basis. And when people were shooting, they were all kind of quarantined in the space for that period. So that's critical. I think that the government has to look at tax incentives. I think there needs to be an incentive to hire people, especially at this time, because you're almost artificially stimulating a very careful economy, so to speak. So instead of focusing on taxing the companies, I think the focus should be taxing the people that are paid by those companies. So tax holidays, especially if the tax incentives are built around hiring people locally, that stimulates some growth. I think another thing that's quite critical is around thinking about the ecosystem approach, because what you find is that governments intermittently intervene when they pull back. But what you need is a sustained a program that helps to stimulate a consistent, pool of entrepreneurs, investors around the world coming to this place. And that means security, that means proper healthcare, that means being able to get your money out as well, because in some countries you can't get the money out, it's in, it doesn't go anywhere. So a good idea around navigating that is maybe making tax credits, for instance, transferable. So that way you can transfer. So let's say you're a creative company and you got 30% tax incentives, you could actually transfer that to an oil company that needs those incentives, sell them for 2x or whatever. And that helps to keep the money in circulation within the city, but also stimulates the economy. Finally, I think one thing that's really critical is the smart use and how things are communicated, for example. Nobody's going to go to Ukraine right now for tourism, right? That's a good example, right? But even in reassuring people that it's safe, it is critical that there is the feeling and the reinforcement of safety protocols, of even the communication, like come to Trinidad and have a great time. We have this set up. And that helps people to think about that. And then I think the final thing is just really around how companies are incentivized to keep those jobs. In some economies, in Atlanta, again, sorry, not a great example, but that's what I know. Atlanta, the government in Georgia basically put a package that was supporting SMEs. So support for companies that were keeping staff on, they would give them loans and they were tax-free, and interest-free loans. So we need to look at that. I know that's difficult in this economy, but we need to keep people employed. We need to keep people traveling so that at least the doors are open. Otherwise, we'll have a second shutdown and then there's not an economic recession to deal with as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now.
Well, it's quite a lot. I don't like how you say all I have, because it was quite a lot. And I don't know if you had noticed, I had put up the applause emoji several times during those 3 points, because they're very important points. And so let's pivot then to
Jules. Jules, do you agree that those incentives are necessary? And what else, from your perspective, do you see as necessary to have a nice, smooth restart? Do you find hesitancy in the market with either audiences or businesses to restart the creative industry post-pandemic or post any crisis?
I definitely believed in everything that Audu said. There's one thing that would be a highlight for me. This pandemic signaled to myself personally, I believe a lot of other people in the ecosystem, that we needed to restart our industry, right? And the only thing that I would have driven is that based on a restart, we needed to rethink, we needed to evaluate where we are going forward in terms of an industry. So for me, it's not back to business as it used to be pre-pandemic. How do we shape what it is that we put forward as our products? So yes, let's just say, for example, an entire ecosystem is very much dependent on our Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, for example. And this ecosystem is not just consist of party promoters or costume designers. It's an entire ecosystem, from the hotels, the taxis, the concierge, etc., etc. This is one festival that everyone looks forward to. But at the same point in time, as we come out from a restart, how are we going to shape this carnival? Are we going to contemplate new festivals that are unique to our territories? And I've always believed in that. The uniqueness of one's territory should symbolize the festivals that you put forward. So take, for example, Tobago is about to put forward a carnival in October. How unique is their carnival going to be? Are there unique elements of it? So based on a restart, yes, there's a lot that is dependent on government. There's a lot that is dependent on corporate entities, etc. But I also believe there's a lot that is dependent on the stakeholders and their approach to the industry as a whole, in terms of the carnival industry, into the festival industry. How do we move forward formidably, making it one of the most iconic carnivals or festivals that the Caribbean has to offer? And I think that's basically it in terms of how I see it. Yes, I do believe that the government plays an integral role in terms of the persons who are visiting the carnivals, making sure that it's a step-by-step process of coming to one's territory and fully understanding what's been put into place, infrastructure, etc., etc. I believe the whole now is how to, especially take the world. We have to take it further. We have the Caribbean is unique. We have only the colors are, the territories and the locations are unique. I have always said that if I had the opportunity, I would have an event in a dormant volcano, just because it's so unique in that regard. On with this industry, especially in light of what we have learned during the pandemic.
Thank you so much for that. So government has a role, we have a role, stakeholders have a role. And Kamal, as a stakeholder yourself in the industry, I know Rum Festival had a successful staging. What changes did you make in order to help have that festival be so successful in light of the crisis that we experienced these last 2 years?
Well, I mean, I must admit what Jules says 100%. I think the uniqueness of festivals and activations across the Caribbean is something that we need to look at as an ecosystem. And he's right, it's not just us as sponsors, just the promoters, but the entire ecosystem have to come together to ensure that festivals across the Caribbean are a success. Last year, in the middle of the pandemic, we decided that a young festival like Rum Festival, we couldn't allow it to die. So we had a fully virtual festival, and we got more than 5 million views across the world. And we invested in giving consumers that experience. Once they signed up online, they're able to get their rum packages, their sampling. We did online seminars, we ensured that they got their mugs. We had the entertainment, we brought it to them digitally, virtually, and of course, free to air. So we made that change because we wanted consumers to see that there's another way that they could enjoy the festival in that light. Now, this year, we tapped into the fact that we want to encourage more tourism to come to Jamaica and the Caribbean. So we moved the festival from Kingston to Montego Bay. And as part of that, we want to ensure that each consumer that entered the festival had that experience. So from the moment you walk into the festival, we didn't just give out, trinkets. We gave you an experience, a historical experience of what it is like to create rum from the grass, from the grassroots, the cane to the barrels, all the way up to the bottle. And once you walk through the entrance, you got that experience. And all of that was coupled with the seminar experiences of how to properly enjoy rum. Because a lot of people think that there's one type of rum, but no, there are various rums based on their aging, based on the texture, based on the background, etc. Right? So we gave them that experience. And for us, from a marketing perspective, we have invested in so many festivals across the Caribbean. Jules can attest to our partnership in Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica. And one of the things that we like about this partnership is how creative he is in terms of delivering a festival that is unique, that's out of the box. And that's what we're looking for from a marketing perspective, is that experiential marketing that makes our product looks different from everything in the world. And that's what we want. We want to be able to give our consumers that part of that experiential experience. And that's why we invest in some of these major festivals in the world, to bring that to the consumer.
Indeed, we have to be attractive on so many levels. I have my next question for Colin. Colin, Ty had spoken about brand building and also about marketing as a joint effort, and this is so important. Someone else spoke about the 360 experience. So I want to find out from you, how far in advance did the planning happen in Dominica, and what different parts of the ecosystem were on the planning table?
Well, you need to start planning the day after, the event with lessons learned. And that's what we typically try to do. But because we are a small organization and we have multiple activities, we have 3 major events that we do a year. From time to time, you have to jump from one to the other. But virtual teams, and setting aside team leads and these sorts of things certainly help. And so the whole, notion of virtual teams is in fact the ecosystem, right? It's everybody that's involved in the activity, whether it's your stage, light and sound in terms of that aspect of it, but it's also how you market and how you promote the event. So for us in particular, for World Creole Music Festival, which is happening October 28th to the 30th of this year, we began planning quite a while ago. We're in the final stages, of putting out the lineup and really going big over the next 3 months with the marketing. Of course, many people who know of the festival have already booked and intend to come. So the event, the brand, that is the World Creole Music Festival in Dominica, is already engendering movement of people. Some wait to hear about the lineup, some wait to hear about this, but in general, people, over 22 years, we've built that brand. And so it's synonymous with Dominica. And the reason that we do have a World Creole Music Festival is because, we changed hands 4 times between the British and the French, and so that's part of our uniqueness. And so, and why we want to be the Creole entertainment capital of the world. And so these are some of the things that we're looking to, building on the uniqueness of what we have to offer, having developed 2 genres of contemporary music, and inviting people from the Creole world and from the Caribbean, because we now have aspects of soca and reggae as part of that festival, and then utilizing the festival in and of itself to market the destination, especially to the entertainment lovers. And we know where artists go, media goes, and where media goes, the destination it generates awareness and interest. And then we hope that people come back now, having spent 3 nights of pulsating rhythms with us in Dominica, that they come back now for a little more relaxing experience, in our hot spas and in our rivers and partaking in our wellness. So we try to get going as early as possible, and we try to include as many as we can towards successful staging of the event.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we started just a little bit after the hour. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to continue again past the hour, just a little bit. And then my next question is for Jules and for Lexy. Kamal had spoken about how the Rum Festival had gone online, and then how the Rum Festival had an experience, both an online experience and then an in-person experience. Colin had also spoken about how the experiential part of festivals and carnivals is so important. But over the pandemic, a lot of us got used to the virtual world. Do you both think, and I'll ask Lexy to answer first as the lady, and then Jules, you'll jump in, please, that keeping the online experience is important? Is it something that will pass away over time? Is it something that we need to develop more? Lexy, you first. Sorry, Lexy, you're muted.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for the question. Look, we're permanently in a hybrid situation, and that's the best way I can say that. Just a simple scenario, we have a nonprofit here that we run, and we were forced, of course, to go into our virtual meetings, and everyone got so comfortable with just, we have not met in person, right? In terms of, there's nothing like being together though, and being in a place and bodies, together. I mean, as human beings, we are meant to coexist in a mutual space, right? So my best answer with that, we're in a permanent hybrid situation. It depends on the individual event, person, place, or thing, as to how much of the post-pandemic changes we adapt to moving forward, as far as virtual versus in person. At least now in modern time, we know that should there be, and we hope that there isn't, because Lord knows I don't like it, but we hope that should there be another shutdown, a lot of us now know how to survive, how to quickly adapt, how to adjust, right? Because we now have this platform to say, okay, we had to come up with ways and means as to how to continue our businesses. We had to do so virtually. And I'm hoping that a lot of us here on this platform was buying into those COVID stocks, Zoom stocks, Netflix stocks, and all these platforms that were just had to now take on all the responsibilities of us existing and continuing to exist as friends, family, and business.
Sorry, this is where you jump in, Jules, and let me know if you also agree that we are in a permanent hybrid state, or if you think that experiential, that bodies together will take over once again.
I believe I completely, fully endorse Lexy. In respect, I subscribe to, it's no longer either or, it's both and more in my regard, right? Because for me, even with my transitioning from the physical event space or the physical festival space and diving into VR and a platform, which is a VR island that is supposed to be symbolic. Yeah, for example, and meet as one. I want to continue exploring that, because it's just as I said before, maybe in this digital virtual realm, I may be able to reach further and further into the world based on what it is that I am pushing forward or exporting as culture, Caribbean culture. This is where we are highlighting culture from a virtual, and even from the realm of where I sit. I think from when we we invested in this platform, there was no sort of true Caribbean identity given what we were doing in music, etc., in that world. So I want to continue exploring it. Of course, there's kind of, I don't know, simply because everybody be outside, right? So it's kind of I don't know. But I do believe it should coexist with what I do from a physical standpoint. So yes, I will subscribe. It's no longer either or, it's both and more.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Audu, I want to get back to you with a very quick question in terms of this hybrid nature. Is hybrid the way that we can, as promoters, as event producers, compensate for our losses in terms of the reduced numbers? And then immediately after, I'm going to ask Colin a quick question about how it is that they were able to compensate Domenico before I release him. So Audu?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to there's so many emerging technologies, honestly, there's so much happening that it's almost mind-boggling to think about what you can do. Literally, we had an event in Los Angeles about a month and a half ago for a award show we're doing in Atlanta. And what we're doing with this case is that we're actually bringing, for the first time, an African award to the US. And we're doing it here. And people are like, why would you do that? I find that one of the things that we do very poorly is that we don't export our cultures. I don't know about what happens in the Caribbean, but in Africa, we don't do that. So people bring in all their festivals and they do it in our places, but we never take anything there. So we're like, no, we're going to take it there. And in the course of those conversations, a guy shows me a phone, and the phone has a hologram. It's the first hologram that you don't need 3D goggles to use it. And you can literally walk into this room on the hologram and just kind of open the door. And it's really some crazy stuff. They've actually done the first hologram festival for, I don't think it's Bob Marley. It's somebody great. I can't remember who it was. What this means is that you can not only do this virtually, you can actually recreate dead people and their music and basically scan everything. And that's a whole different experience, right? More importantly,
very much so.
Yeah, it is. But that's the way the world is going. And I think the other thing that the hybrid model has done for us is that we can actually do all things. Like before you had a job and you had to be, but now you can literally work on 3 or 4 different projects from the comfort of your home. And what that means, I don't see it going away permanently. I think it's always going to be a hybrid, but there's nothing that beats human-to-human interaction. And that is why we need to make the travel experience, the immigration experience, we need to make that seamless so that people, it's worth coming out. And I recall at the heart of the pandemic, I was like, look, if I'm ever going to get on a plane, then it needs to be worth my time. Otherwise, I'll do a Zoom call or I'll watch it on YouTube. So we need to, just back to the point I think Jules made earlier, is just really around creating and calling. It's about creating the experience that is worth the buck. But people will always undulate between hybrid and physical. So
indeed, yes, excellent point. Thank you so much, Colin. I know that you do have to go. I thank you for staying with us a little longer than the 9 o'clock. But I wish for you a great day. Any closing remarks before you head out?
Well, just that it's been a pleasure to be part of this esteemed panel, and I think I was here making some notes, because continuous learning is important. And so we just, recognize the importance of, the creative industries, in our product. And our product, from my perspective, is a tourism product because that's the hat I wear. And so we want to make sure that the creative industries, the intangible capital, however it manifests itself, is more critically intertwined with our tourism product, because it is through that we will provide variety as a Caribbean space. It is through that we will also create our uniqueness, and that we can develop comparative advantages. And we are trying to do that, for example, with the World Creole Music Festival and doing some other things like with jazz and Creole. But we also want our properties, we also want our communities to do things that capitalize on the local and human capital, and provide those authentic experiences for for visitors. In that regard, they will amplify through word of mouth and the financial resources that we will have to put out to market the destination, which then turns around to more visitors. Every day, visitors are spending either on their hotel room, on their rental car. So there's a daily expenditure, and that's what we're looking to capitalize on. And we want that happening in local communities. We want that happening through women-owned businesses. We want that happening through small businesses, and just the entrepreneurial spirit of the destination. So I thank you for having me on the panel. It's been wonderful, but I do have to bid farewell. Thanks once again.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you, Colin. Have a great day. Ty, I want to bring it back to you. Based on everything that we have discussed this morning and the resilience of the Caribbean to still market our creative industries post-pandemic as well as post-crisis, how do you think it is that we can continue to attract B2B partners and continue to cater for B2B partners? And how can those partners insulate themselves in case there's another terrible crisis or pandemic or such loss event? Ty, did I lose you? Oh, I'm not seeing Ty, but no worries. We shall continue right along. So to the panel, we've had a very robust discussion this morning, and I want to make sure that we exit with a roadmap, as you will, as to what should our next steps be. We had a number of discussions, but what points do we want to bring home definitively and specifically to our stakeholders to say, ladies and gentlemen, this is your roadmap in order to have a successful reopening of the sector, and not just reopening, but sustainability of the sector. Let me start with you, Kamal. And while I wait for Kamal to,
sorry, I was
no problem.
No, I think again, I'll pivot back to what Jules said: the importance of the ecosystem and everybody working together to ensure that the entire industry comes alive as we reopen. The pandemic over the last 2 years plus, have definitely taken a toll on the industry, and we can see where numerous number of activities have not even restarted. And for some that have restarted, the resilience of those organizations is based on the support base that they have and the ecosystem around them. And as a group, or a Caribbean team, as a Caribbean family, how do we come together to ensure that the smaller festival activities, they continue to grow? Because it's based on all of us coming together and growing that we can, drive the entertainment industry in the Caribbean. People don't want to travel to a region just for one activity. They want to travel to a region where they can enjoy quite a number of activities over a period of time. And so the investment makes sense. And when they do come to our countries and to our region, when they spend that US or euro or the pound, it goes right back into the overall ecosystem and continue to grow the economy. So it's important for us to continue to work together from a government standpoint, from investment standpoint, and from just supporting the overall ecosystem and development across the Caribbean, so as we can continue to have that tourism mecca grow, and of course continue to get the contribution that we need to drive the ecosystem of the Caribbean community.
As I move to find my unmute button, thank you so much, Kamal. Excellent. Audu, do you have any closing remarks to help us and help yourself as well, because you are definitely a member of the creative industries? What do you plan to do moving forward to ensure sustainability and to prevent disruption from any future pandemics?
I think that even where there aren't health pandemics, there's going to be economic pandemics. There are all sorts of pandemics that happen. That's the nature of the beast. I think what is crucial is a continuous engagement with the government, with the private sector, because it's a collaborative approach for the most part. Someone sent me a direct message and said culture, music, and entertainment in the region are firmly placed to politics and governmental interventions. I don't know if that is true or not, but I'll tell you what kind of happened with, say, the music industry in Nigeria. What really happened was that about 15 years ago, the government said, look, we're going to require a 70% local content. They created a local content policy. So 70% of the music that's going to be played had to be Nigerian. And that single act changed a lot, because then radio stations had to meet that quota to keep their licenses on. And that phenomenon has actually become what is now called Afrobeat music, which is taking the world by storm. And I think that wasn't a government epiphany. I think it was the intervention between the private sector and the public sector and saying, look, how can we work together? This is invaluable. So in everything that we think about, the government part is key, but it has to be in terms of keeping the policy right and correcting the market, where it needs to. But for the most part, creative industries must be allowed to thrive by themselves. And I see that there's a crucial role that institutions help. The biggest problem that I see across, whether it be festivals, film, music, video gaming, is the skills. And we are lacking those skills. So every partnership must be so strategically placed in such a way that there's a skills transfer component in the program. So what you do is you end up having local skills transferred to our people, and that way they can actually start earning money regardless of when the event comes. And worst case scenario, what you do is you repurpose your skills for something else. One of the people that we manage, a guy called Femi Kuti, who's Fela Kuti's son. And there's a guy who does all the sound engineer for the tours. During the pandemic, he didn't work for about almost 2 years. So we caught up on the phone, and I was like, yo, what are you doing now? And he said, I'm now an electrician. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? He said, I'm fixing houses and I'm making money because I repurposed my skills in sound engineering. And I think that we have to be flexible, versatile, because the world keeps changing, and all we can do is learn how to adapt really quickly. So thank you. Adapt.
Quite true. Thank you so much. Lexy, do you have any closing remarks for us? You're on mute, Lexy.
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Thank you, Carlette. There was a question. My closing remarks would be, there's a question that you had for me that I don't think we touched on, and forgive me if we did and I missed it. And that was about consumers and fan base. And so it's important, I believe, for us to, especially in the Caribbean market, to incorporate, to reach out to collaborate with the big branders, the big corporates, and let them know that there's a place in the Caribbean for them, not just in the music industry, but also the agricultural industry, also the development of our upcoming talents, also, just what the each country has to offer. You take Dominica, for example, which, I've done a lot of work in for many, many years, and we call it the Nature Isle, of course, right? The untouched island. And there's so much that we can explore there, and there's so much to be done. Same thing for St. Kitts, Antigua, Guyana. So, how do we bridge and bring more big corporate development into our islands to help us sustain and to help us adapt. Loyal consumers, and I want to touch on the branding just quickly as my closing. Loyal consumers and music fans was a question that you had for me. They are the backbone of artist branding and corporate branding on a whole, right? So consumers and fans can help to either help a brand either adapt and survive or fail. Right. And what do I mean by that? Co-branding, as it pertains to artists and corporations, certainly help to build the question that you ask about meaningful and long-term relationships and connections with an artist fan base by staying consistent, engaging in innovative and current marketing and visibility. We're in a fast-paced world, and especially the younger fan base for artists. corporations and branding can figure out if they're, collaborating with the artist, for example, what is that artist's passion? What cause does that artist support? Is it mental health in young people? And go after that and address that and do more marketing around that or with that, to stay engaged with the fan base, get that fan base to continue to be loyal supporters, not just of the artists and the influencers and celebrities that they're collaborating with, but also become now fans of the brand itself.
That was quite a bit in your closing remarks. We all had to be making notes on that one. Thank you, Lexy. And Jules, over to you. Jules, we'd love to hear your closing remarks for today. What words of encouragement do you have for industry as we move on and out of this crisis?
I think my internet went down a little bit there. But ideally for me, events and festivals, carnivals are very, I believe it's a serious industry, right? And it's time that persons who are within that ecosystem are also taken seriously. I don't think that they understand the magnitude of having events and festivals, producing, managing events and festivals, and how it has benefited probably even persons and territories and countries, etc. So just a little example, my events or my ability to export culture has taken me to the world in a sense. And ideally, if the Caribbean region understands this, it can be used as an effective marketing tool, the entire Caribbean and its territories, right? So it needs to be taken seriously. We need to make sure that we harvest and bring forth, mold the persons who are going to be the next generation of festival producers, and make sure that we sustain this industry, because I do believe it's a beneficial one, right? I will also harp on the reset, rethink, re-strategize, reinvent. It is so important after a pandemic. How do you push forward after you have learned that an industry can be taken down? What have you learned in that past 2 years? And how are you going to implement it in the way forward? And that is why I will always say, embrace digital transformation. Yes, we are back out in a physical sense, but it's time to also embrace the future. So it's important for us to embrace digital transformation, be able to utilize it alongside with what we do best. I think it's important. And if you're hesitant, at least try to explore it, or at least try to get persons around you who can actually help implement it in what you do, right? Be unique. It's important. For example, we were speaking about World Creole Festival. If we are going to be unique in your carnivals and festivals, you need to understand what you can bring forward. What is unique about your territory? So take, for example, for Tobago, it's mud. It's a unique characteristic. It's a ritual for them. That needs to be highlighted and showcased in that realm. As Tobago inaugural carnival, we are highlighting and showcasing to the world the ritual, the experience of mud. It's important. Every territory, we should try to embrace what is unique to us. And I think really and truly, once we start getting this understanding, the Caribbean as a whole, in respect of festivals and carnivals, will be destined to have the best festivals and carnivals on the planet.
Let us embrace our uniqueness. Yes, thank you so very much. All right, so we've heard from all our panelists, and let me prepare you for what comes next. Mr. Andre Hoyt is online. He is from the National Cultural Foundation in Barbados. Mr. Hoyt, I'm going to ask you to say a few words before Jerome Hamilton comes in to give the vote of thanks, but I'm going to invite everyone to stay on for the validation session. So after Mr. Hoyt speaks and Mr. Hamilton speaks, we will have a brief video, and then all the participants, we ask you to stay on for the validation session. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of it. And remember that this benefits everyone, the entire region. So I'm going to ask you to stay on. And I won't say what right now, but we have some incentives for you if it is that you stay on, other than the learning, which is so important. After 2 years, if we've learned nothing, then we have really wasted our time. We want to make the best of what we've taken up. So, Mr. Hoyt, are you available to speak? If you are, please unmute and turn on your camera.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Yes, thank you.
Both.
I'm very, very happy to be part of this session today. As you know, we are in the middle of the Crop Festival, and we have just another week and a half to go. So we're all over the place executing events. And what I would want to say is that coming out of that 2020 CIIF Talks, where we started to look at the planning and what was necessary for us to be able to sustain through this pandemic, we've been able to support a number of creatives directly, and then the subsectors who they've been employing, and over $8 million of investment we would have given to them in the last 2 years for product development. So we're seeing a lot of the results of that. Music specifically, we're seeing coming out. We did a lot of workshops in terms of costume design, etc. And so what we are seeing for our festival so far are scores and scores of people coming out to events, all ready and excited to be outside, and great quality of music. And so we are thankful that we were able to put that support in place over the last 2 years. We're very happy with the contributions made by your panelists today. We're very, very thankful for them for being able to share that amongst us as a region. And I'm sure that all of the participants who are here today will be able to take that information back and be able to share it. And that's all I really have to say, to keep it short and sweet. And we look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow as well. So thank you, and thanks to the CDB team for inviting the NCF to share in this process with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, and thank you. If I had an award for most colorful attire, you would win, and it would be great. Yes, I like it. Yes. All right, thank you so very much. And we will close off this portion of the session with our vote of thanks. So just before Mr. Hamilton comes in, I'm reminding all our participants that we ask that you stay on after Mr. Hamilton's speech and a brief video for our validation session. This is going to be equally important. This is where we break down everything it is that we learned from our panelists, as well as everything that we've learned for the last 2 years to build a roadmap for success. So please stay on for that. And without further ado, Jerome Hamilton, Headline Entertainment.
Thank you much, Scarlett. I must thank very much again. To me, this has been a great learning experience. It was great for us to bring persons from across the Caribbean, from across the wider world, to have a quick sharing of information, gathering of knowledge from each other. I learned quite a bit here, and I'm hoping that as well there will be some partnerships formed here. I have to thank very much CDB and the CIIF team for making this happen with the invaluable contribution and participation of the NCF. There's a lot to be done and said, and I'm looking forward to the validation session where we can get feedback. I also saw a number of comments coming in some of them that already I see some partnerships have started here, but the validation session will give us a great chance to hear back from you and for us to interact on a different level. To the panelists, I thank you very much for taking the time. The thing about it is, even though it is such a session, I notice everyone here is actively involved in the industry. There is some fest that started now. I know Kamal is there, and there's Mr. Hoyt and NCF and Cropover. So everybody's busy, and it's good for all of us in this industry to see it back out and opening. So I know we're all busy, but I'm glad that we had time to discuss this today, and I'm looking forward to another exciting discussion tomorrow. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the validation session and beyond.
Thank you all. Please stay with us through this video into the validation session. To our panelists, have a wonderful morning.
Hi, I need to get online, Kevin. If you can